people. It is Tuesday evening. It's my Wednesday, 11 a.m. here in Asia. Okay, so let's jump in. I'm doing Kurv, and I just updated TSLP. So let's take a look at what TSLP. So they declared yesterday. Um, Before the market and ex-dividend, so it's too late to buy now, but this is more for people that own it. 55 cents. Well, how does that compare? They paid 55 last time. The time before they paid 70, and then they paid $1. So those are the payments um, so far. All right. And remember, all they've done with these groups is change the groups to make them look like they're weekly, but everything's paying on a month. It's really the same thing in YieldMax, although YieldMax does have, the YMaxes and the SDTYs and the RDTYs and that Chappie and some of the other ones that are trying to compete with Roundhill and then some unique ones. So YieldMax is credited. So I think what they've done at Kurv, or I know what they've done at Kurv, is just break these groups, right? So I call them week one, and then above these you'll get KQQ and NFLP. They're both week four guys. Then Appy and Goop and Amazon and Microsoft. So the only May update so far is TSLP. So just in case you haven't seen some of these, so that's why I run through that. Um, Let me show you what my monthly summary has got. So over here is where I really go out and lay out how are you doing if you bought these things, right? Because anybody can just say, oh, this is what they paid. So before I was tracking last year, and then the only new one is Tech Titans, which implemented or launched or had an inception date of July 23rd and came out at 2506. But what I'm trying to do now is just say, how's the 2025 stats? How do they look? So when I go over, so you can see the only May guy. So next week, you'll get NFLP, which is their Netflix, and their KQQQ, which is a bunch of the tech titans. Those guys will report. And then the next week, Appy and Google will report, then Amazon and Microsoft will report, and then it's back to Tesla alone or TSLP. So I will update comparisons with YieldMax, which I haven't done, and I apologize for that. Just so many hours in the day, and I'm trying to add some YieldMax. Hopefully, you saw my Pulte review on earnings and what they stand to pay out. And I think some people miss it. One of my comments was, hey, the price is too high for how much it pays out. I can do much better in others. Well, guys, I always say, go where they treat you best, but also are you looking at total return just to say it's, you want to look at yield on cost, which I'm always showing. So my view has Pulte yielding close to 100%. They're a $60 stock and they're paying in the fives, and I think it's very likely we could see $7 or $8 on Pulte this month. Now, granted, they went down after earnings, but again, they're priced for perfection. So I don't think they'll stay down long. It just depends if this bear market potential plays out. And in the meantime, guys, if you're not watching my gold and silver precious metals, those things are killing it and will really continue to kill it. You're doing yourself a disservice if all you're doing is chasing YieldMax and Roundhill for the long term. I get it. Maybe you got a 20-year or 30-year horizon, but you want to think about if the next 7 or 8 years is really all about commodities. Are you own those? Are you represented in that sector? Because just saying, oh, I'm frustrated, I own AMZ and yield max, and I used to get a higher yield, and now I have a lower yield. Look, guys, these income funds cannot overcome bear markets or sector changes where the Mag 7 and the big stocks, the money's not flowing. Okay. All signs I see say that's changing. Now, if I look out on a 7-year horizon, I see a 3 to 5% average annual return in the NASDAQ and in the Russell and very likely the S&P 500. That's not very, that's way below average annual returns of 9 to 12% on those indexes. Anybody can get lucky and pick a stock. Like I said to you, if any NASDAQ stock, software oriented stock, is going to do well, it's going to be Palantir. But Palantir can't change if there's a bear market in AI and NASDAQ and heavy tech. You know, they can't overcome that, but they can outperform within their sector. So it's all about sector and selection. You know, I do think BTC will do well, but as long as there's risk on and it stays associated with the NASDAQ, like when the NASDAQ jumps, a lot of times BTC jumps, it needs to show that it's a store of value like gold has been for centuries. I was going to say decades, but it's literally hundreds and thousands of years. And the mining stocks have woken up and they're going to do terrific over the next 5 years. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not watching them. I'll get thousands of views on my yield max analysis of what they're going to pay. I'll do a serious gold and mining deep dive on where you ought to be, which gold stocks are going to outperform, why gold's going to outperform, why silver is going to do even better than gold and platinum. And I get 2, 3, 4, 500 views. So you guys are doing yourself a misservice if you're not aware of that. I rode the dot-com bubble up in my income and stock. And then when I turned 50 in that 2000, it all crashed. I didn't think it was going to happen. I was trading in and out of stocks. I was doing all kinds of things. And it just killed me, you know, working for one of the big four horsemen of the tech era and seeing that stock go down and see everything beaten down. You know, the NASDAQ went down like 80%. It took it 15 years to get back to where it was. So I figured out precious metals and commodities around 2001. I just kept researching cycles and history and digging in, and I started buying gold and gold stocks. And, you know, I made 8 times my money in the next, 10 years to 2011. And I was able to retire. You know, it wasn't that far from a normal retirement, but it was still early. I was around 58 when I retired. I moved to Asia and have moved around in Asia. I've moved back to North America a few times. I'm back in Asia. And, I don't have to work. I'm retired. I have plenty of assets. And, more than 50% of my liquid or my wealth is in physical metals. That's how much I believe in gold. So you can imagine if how well I've done just over, since 2024, gold is up, over 50%. So I suspect it tops out at 7,500, maybe 10,000. But the gold stocks will go up 4 or 5x, and then the medium sized ones will probably go up 8 to 10x, and the little junior explorers, you're going to have some that go 20 to 100. But now listen to me. I'm not saying go out and buy these moose pasture ones that have silver or gold in their name. Many of them will go bankrupt. They're not valid, or the CEO started them, because it's a lifestyle. They just, do valuations and raise capital all the time and never produce any results. But for every 2 or 3 of those, there's one with a serious management team, and you're going to make a lot of money. And it's only when that area heats up and it runs for multiple years. All right, enough on that, guys. But I can't hammer that enough of you guys that are just chasing dividend income, because unless these firms change up what they own, and I haven't seen a big orientation to that. There's some, okay? And like I said, if BTC has its act together, and it should as an alternative safety play, then BTC will do well. But you'll get killed in a lot of the meme coins. Those things will fly up 1,200% and then they'll crash back to a penny. You know, they'll go 5 cents to $12 and back to 5 cents. And that's not going to happen in your gold and silver, your legit miners. They're just going to 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x. And if they have production and they're producing, those guys are going to be 3 to 4 to 5x. And that's a safe play on something, you know. Warren Buffett's all over Barrick. One of my subscribers asked me today, Bruce, you like AEM, why not Barrick? Well, Barrick's symbol is GOLD. But I said, you know what? Barrick is in 12 jurisdictions, and 4 or 5 of them are geopolitical nightmares in Africa and some other continents that really, when the government in those countries decides to just take your mine away, they do it, and then you're in arbitration and international courts for 7 or 8 years and tied up with lawyer fees to try and get compensation for being done wrong by that government. But that happens. So that's the reason. But I said to my subscriber, look, Warren Buffett is a smart guy. The reason he's going into Barrick, GOLD, the symbol, is because it's gone up like 15% since March of 2024. AEM has gone up 100% almost, or more than 100. I don't have the numbers in front of me when I did the video. But, you know, he's saying you really like AEM. And I think Warren Buffett's just playing, you know, eventually Barrick's going to get his act together and risk isn't going to matter. And all these big mining companies, I mean, Barrick's a number 2 gold miner in terms of assets or reserves in the ground. Newmont passed them up through a big acquisition they did, and they're number 1. And number 3 is Anikio Eagle Mines, which is AEM. I love AEM. I think they got another 3x in them. Barrick may have a 5x. But until I really see Barrick starting to move and see signs of it, then I may jump in. But I think Warren Buffett is smart to get in, you know, when it's undervalued and nobody's. The sector is heating up. Okay, guys, enough on that. I came in here to do Kurv, so let me dive in here. TSLP. So let me get back here. So this is the history so far, right? They came out, they paid $1.30, then they paid $1, then they paid 70, then they paid 55, and now they're the only one so far in May that's paid 55. The problem being, and we all saw it with Tesla, it doesn't take, you know, anybody that's watched the news to see everybody attacking Musk and thus Tesla and the stock's down. But I think with Elon coming back in as CEO soon, or full time pretty much, and getting that thing to turn, Tesla's not about the cars. It's about the robots. It's about the auto taxi, the robo taxi. There's just so many things that guy has. I don't care about your political persuasion. I don't care if you hate him or love him. The guy's a genius, okay? And I think he's going to do well, you know, and he does well in everything he owns. I mean, you know, brilliance is brilliance, just like Michael Saylor is super brilliant. A little older, a little more, you know, set in his ways, but he's done a hell of a job in doing a financial model with BTC that nobody dreamt. And MicroStrategy and now strategy is up in the stratospheres. It scares me how high it gets. But again, I don't do those always for income because it's just like Palantir versus Pulte. You make so much more money in the growth stock. I know some of you say you need income, you don't know how to write options. But guys, you're limiting yourself. So take a course, go back and look at some of my videos. I go in how to do options. I do private sessions if you want a 101. You know, I'm charging $50, $75 for an hour. It just depends if you buy a set of 3 or 4. I've taught many people how to do it, and they're like, Bruce, this is eye-opening. You know, you just have to have somebody help you and walk through to have the confidence to do it. And I'm not talking about sophisticated. I'm talking about selling in a put occasionally so you can buy the stock cheaper, selling what's called a covered call where you buy the underlying and you write a call. Those don't take rocket science. And once you're sort of taught what to look for and how to do it, it's not that hard even when you're working to add some income. I mean, I make way more on my Palantir selling puts, okay, and selling calls than I do on my PLTY. But I like to, have some that I don't have to do anything on. Let them own it because I'm just so bullish on the underlying. But again, a heavy bear market can hurt any of our stocks that we like. Okay, so here's year to date distribution TSLP $4.10. So that gives us so far, based on the price that we started with, which was 30.25 at the beginning of the year, that's given us, okay, 13.55. That's not annualized. That's just a so far. It's not fabulous. It's second best to Titans, but look at the gain loss on the NAV. You lost 9 points, so you've lost 31% on your NAV. But Yieldmax went through this. I don't have their up to date comparative numbers. But that was the problem with Yieldmax. People was fine. You do not want to be in a stock that's going down. That's why people that tell me Ulti is so great, I go, no, it's not. Go look at the chart on Ulti. It just continues down. Yes, it pays 70, 80% yield, right? But 70 or 80% yield when it was a $20 stock was a nice payment. When it's a 5.94, I think is the last price. That's not very much of a payment. You're getting 8 or 9 cents. Now it's weekly, 4 times a week. You're getting 36 cents. Okay. I mean, it's not that far off this. And what's the price of this stock? It's 1938. So yeah, percentage wise, it's a little better. But at least in Tesla, the underlying, this thing will go up 300%, pull back 150%, and go up another 300% if you just bank on the technology underneath it. Whereas I don't see a strategy in Ulti. They simply buy options, write covered calls on all the hot stocks, and those hot stocks aren't always hot, right? They crash just as much as they rise. So I'm not a fan of it. Stick with Misty, stick with something like that. Ulti, no. I just don't like it. People are going to argue with me, and that's okay. But they're not always looking at the data. Just ask yourself, do you want a 70% yield and a 64% decline in your NAV? Oh, there's that NAV guy. He's just afraid of the stock. Well, what's your net? What's your total return if you got a 70% yield and a 64% NAV loss, say over the last 12, 14 months? And then you say, okay, well, that's a 6% return. Go put your money in treasuries. You don't even have to worry about checking your payment and doing all the calculations and everything else. That's nothing, that's nothing great. If you tell me you got a 95% dividend return for the year and you lost 45, I'd say 50% return is damn good. So what is it going to do when it goes back up? And that was a problem with Tesla. When you were in Tesla, if you bought into Tesla when it came out, Tesla was on its way down from 400 and went all the way back down to 100. And then when it ran back up to 3 or 400 again, the Yield Max Tesla fund couldn't keep up. It doesn't go back up. So when you take 95% of all the loss when these go down, some of the income offsets the other 5, 6, 7%. But when it goes up, you maybe at best, when it really flies, you get a third of the up movement. So you can never get back in these if you don't time all your buys. And guys will tell me, oh, I only buy it when it's way down. Well, guys, over the last 6 months, no matter where you bought it over when it was way down, it's below that, right? So you tell me, when is it going to go up? When's it going to be $8 or $9 again? Or is it going to be better yet to say, when's it going to be 4 and when's it going to be 3 and when's it going to be 2? Now your dividend yields are really small. So you're never going to get back there, guys. There's much better stuff. Everybody, that you look at yield on cost only on 594, I'm getting, 40 cents. Well, is that better than $5 on Pulte when it's a $60 stock? No, it's not. They're pretty close to being the same. But I think Pulte has a lot, Palantir underneath has a lot better chance. All right, guys. So I hit you with a lot of data. You can read this stuff. I don't have to read it to you. Here's your total returns. So really, Netflix has been the performer, and that's probably in the current economy. People are staying home and watching movies. Makes sense. So I made white these guys that I didn't think performed that bad. They're under. Oh, this one's up. Sorry. That one needs to be green. I usually have conditional formatting, but I took it off these when I was doing something else. Okay, so 19%, an 18% loser. I get it. I think if you stayed in Tesla long enough, but see, to me, buy the underlying, do your own calls, and time your buys. I don't know that these income funds, and typically, Curve does a lot better job than YieldMax does on most of these. They usually win on like 4 out of the 6. I say out of the 6 because they don't have comparison ones for this, but these first two and these last four, pretty much all the Mag 7 types, although Netflix is not in the Mag 7, but pretty much everybody else is. Um, you a Curve is conservative. They don't tend to pay as much yield, but they don't get hurt as much in the nav loss. So I need to update my data over here. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. Look for some of my mining stuff. I got a top 15 that I got out of my database. I need to get that video out. I'm trying to do Coney and Misty on the dailies, but it's not looking like that's going to happen. I'll probably do every other day on those guys and cover what the payouts are. I got my payout on Pulte, and I'll update that. They don't pay until declare until 5/21, but I'm seeing $7 or $8 payment, guys. That's a $62 stock now. That's damn big money. Doesn't mean it'll exactly be it. If it crashes 20% from this, we won't have that much. But I would say it's a shoe-in, pretty much no matter what, that we get $5 again. All right, guys, that's what I got. Again, Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation, not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Have a great rest of your evening and the rest of the week. Bye for now.